So before I start, does anybody else want to be recording that I have not already clicked on the record button?
Mel, I'll have a go. I haven't done it before, but.
All right, I'll just allow record.
Thank you.
No worries. So what we're going to be talking about today is the degree of difficulty, essentially the degree of difficulty in assessing your own modules, assessing your own choreography. And I thought, rather than hear me go on and on and on, I've asked a very lovely young lady to join us today. I think she just turned 21 a couple of years back, and she has more knowledge than I will. Betsy Gotta has joined us today with her husband Roy, and Betsy has actually been calling since 1961, and she's been teaching callers how to call since 1973. Right now she's calling several programs. You call all programs from basic to C3, unless you've added C4 to the list.
No, I don't do C4. Way too much effort.
Yeah. She calls for 5 different clubs. She's done a number of caller schools around the world, including gracing us with her presence and her husband Roy's presence here in Australia a couple of years ago. She not only teaches dancers to dance and callers to call, but she teaches coaches and teachers to coach and how to teach. I don't think there's been a Caller Lab convention in the last 50 years or so where Betsy hasn't either featured, paneled, or influenced, presenting on various topics to callers on such things as teaching outside the box, teaching an entire evening of basic level 1 successfully, revitalizing square dancing as a whole, creating alternate figures for singing calls. She was also one of the frontline soldiers helping break the barriers against women in calling. And I could go on and on and on about Betsy. I'd probably need a 3-hour PowerPoint presentation to list all of her credits. But
and everybody would be asleep.
Yeah, she's a Caller Lab Milestone Award recipient, a life member, accredited caller coach, and a recording artist on, I think, 4 different labels now.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand the reins over to Betsy because she has probably forgotten more about calling than I will ever know.
Wow, he makes me sound so important. All right, let's see if I can make the technology work.
So Betsy, how much are you paying Mel?
A lot. Okay, now I only have one problem that I can see here, and that is that on my Taminations Sequencer, there's no place for me to type. Does anybody have an idea of how I can fix that?
Try Control R. That should refresh the screen.
Didn't do a thing.
You're on a Macintosh, aren't you?
Yeah. No, I'm on a PC.
What I've noticed is if you call the sequencer directly, you get your screen. If you call the sequencer from the Taminations main menu, you'll get a 3-part window.
Yeah, and I thought. That's from the internet, and it still isn't going to give me the thing, because that's what I did before.
Go up to full screen up at the top.
Yeah, try opening it up a little bit, Betsy.
Nope.
Settings.
Settings. I'm clicking on settings. My husband is going, where are you clicking?
How about on calls?
No, if settings not going to work, that's not going to pull up the second window either.
Nope.
How about I think that's a different version because I've run into that same thing where one computer pulls it up that way and one computer pulls it up the other way.
Well, the thing was I had it up this way when I came on Zoom, something happened. So
try another website, Betsy.
Yep. All righty. No, that doesn't work.
Now, if you need to,
Betsy, click on your chat. I put the link in the chat for the correct one.
Okay, bless you. Where's my chat? Down here. Yay! Now, let's see if I can get the share screen back. Okay. Thank you for the technical assistance. So, we're talking about degree of difficulty. And in this day and age, the degree of difficulty has to do with getting the right technology. So, I presume most of you have seen the list of what makes things difficult, but we'll review them for everybody. An unknown call. A familiar call but infrequently used. An unfamiliar formation. An unfamiliar arrangement. To remind people, arrangement is where the placement of the men and the ladies, the boys and the girls within the formation. Remember too much. Keep track of too much. Anticipation. That's the dancers are used to a certain combination and you don't give them that combination. Smoothness lacking. Doesn't even have to be awful for the dancers to have a bobble because it doesn't feel right. And then there's what is right. That's what the dancers expect at the end of something, and they think that's the right way and that's the only way, and it isn't necessarily so. And then the final degree of difficulty factor is a compounding of several of these. Now, I want to go on record right now as saying that if you are not calling in the US, some of these may not apply to you. If you're calling in Europe, many of my examples will be way too easy for the dancers and probably those dancers in Japan also. But I have gone with what I know is to degree of difficulty. So we're going to go through it one by one. So start with a little known or unknown or little known call. And all of these are from a corner box. I just had a square through 4 and we're doing zeros from a corner box. So the first is an unfamiliar or unknown call. Basic sequence. These would give you no trouble in mainstream. Absolutely no trouble at all. But if you do a touch a quarter, let's get in here. Okay. Of course, it's not going to do it. There you go. It's not found.
Are you showing us Taminations, Betsy?
I was.
if you just hit the Alt key and the Tab key at the same time, it'll show you what you've got open, and then you just click your mouse on the Tamination screen.
Oh, I have them side by side on my screen. You're not getting that?
No.
Okay.
You gotta go Alt Tab and then choose the Tamination screen, so you flip over so we can see it.
Oh, everything went away.
It's a high degree of difficulty today.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I think you just shared that program. You didn't share your desktop. So stop your sharing and start it again and pick your desktop so you can do the switching between them.
Okay. Share my desktop. That's what I had before.
Just go Stop Share.
Yep.
And then Start Share. Click on the Taminations. You may have to do that a couple of times.
Yeah. There we are.
Now Start Share, and then you'll see all the programs you got open, and then you just click Taminations. It should work.
Actually, I'm just going to do this.
So meanwhile, back at the farm, there was
Meanwhile, back at the farm, if we have touch a quarter and a scoot back, we've already gone beyond the knowledge of the people who dance basic, because they don't do scoot back.
Is it not working, Betsy?
No,
Hang on.
bring it up and I'll work that way.
You see my screen?
No,
Negative.
she
Okay,
has to stop doing a screen share so you can.
Okay, I'm going to stop. I have stopped. There it is. Okay. Scoot back. And I actually, there, I need that. Going back up, hang on, 2 seconds. And I'm there. All right, boys run. Right and left through. And a star through. And that should be a 0. There we are. But by using the scoot back, you've given a higher degree of difficulty to anybody who dances basic, because they don't know that. Similar example, but compounding the issue. We have touch a quarter, scoot back, that's 1. Boys run, right and left through, slide through. Now we have 2 calls that are from the mainstream list, which the people dancing basic don't know. These 0s would be perfectly good for somebody who dances mainstream, or plus, or whatever else. But for those who dance basic, it's unknown. Now we got we're gone to mainstream. Now a little known call, or a lesser used call, boxinette. It was starting from a corner box, so pair them off. Boxinette. That's lesser used, I know, at least here in the States. Turn through. Courtesy turn. Slide through. Star through. And they're right back where they were. But the boxinette and the turn through may cause some slight bobble that has a higher degree of difficulty because they're not. I know here in the States, in a lot of areas, the only place we see turn through, or the dancers see turn through, is Alaman left your corner, turn through with your partner, Alaman left your corner. If you do it other places in other formations, they just never have done it from there. And that doesn't mean it's right. That just means people have to be aware when calling whether, that might cause a higher degree of difficulty. Okay, next sequence, swing through, boys run, tag the line and face right. Boys cross run, and that the ones in red, as we go through my slides, will be the ones that I think are causing the degree of difficulty. Bend the line and slide through. Okay. So, there we go. I am screen sharing, but nothing is there.
Your tulips are there.
What? The
Your
tulips are there. And we don't want to see the tulips. That's my screensaver.
Do you want, yep, you want the PowerPoint back up?
Yeah.
We're looking at screen 4.
Okay. I've got your PowerPoint presentation up on the screen now, Betsy.
We need 2. 3,
Okay.
I mean. Okay.
We just did that one?
Yeah. That we
Okay.
did. Here's where we want to be.
Yep.
So an unfamiliar formation, or a lesser familiar formation. Centers in, centers run, touch a quarter, boys run. This is getting fun. Centers in, centers run, touch a quarter, and the boys run. This actually is an invert and rotate too. But the centers in, and part of that is and the centers run is not normally what we use as we're going. It's perfectly acceptable. It just isn't what they're waiting for. Okay. The next one would be a left touch a quarter, walk and dodge, girls fold, square through 4, and wheel and deal, zoom, and the centers turn through. I probably should have made that, I read too. Okay, so left touch a quarter. We got to get to the corner box. Left touch a quarter. So anything left here in the States, probably in Canada, lesser in overseas, anything left is higher degree of difficulty because it's less familiar. Walk and dodge. Girls fold. And that's the girls don't get to do any of these things usually. It's usually the boys fold, the boys run, the boys do this. So square through 4. Wheel and deal. Zoom. And the centers turn through. So all kinds of things caused difficulty there. Not for these guys. But you have the left touch a quarter, the walk and dodge where the girls are walking and the boys are dodging. You got the same sexes together for the square through 4. And the turn through, I probably should have put that in red too, because as I said before, it's lesser used in the US and a lesser used in a lot of places, I think. Okay, next one. Unfamiliar arrangement. We've already had one of those in the square through 4, but let's see what we've got here. Slide through. Where am I? Pass the ocean. Swing through. And here's where the higher degree of difficulty is coming. Recycle, because Very often we've never done that in the States. And boxinat, which is again a lesser used call. Also unfamiliar arrange. Oh, he's going to run it through. So touch a quarter. Girls run. Lesser done. Past the ocean. It's half sashayed, so where I call, that would be a total, the next call out of my mouth would be square your sets. Boys trade. Recycle. Again, that's half sashayed. And boxinat. Giving us our nice corner box. Any of these that you wish to appropriate, go right ahead. Okay, next one. So then we get into remember too much. And oh, we're getting the stars. So we got a boxinat, turn through and a courtesy turn, all of which are lesser used. Flutter wheel, sweep a quarter, right and left through, and slide through. And the other one that we'll do, okay, let's do that one first. So, boxinat.
Hang on. Oh.
Turn through, courtesy turn, flutter wheel, sweep a quarter. Yeah, you got to put the sweep a quarter in. Right and left through, and slide through. The other one, oh, you're going to run it, yes.
Betsy,
Yeah.
would you use a box to net after a swing through, say from the zero line, zero box, swing through box to net?
I probably would not, although technically it's legal because you've got the handhold. You'd have to tell the dancers, you have to educate. That would be a higher degree of difficulty indeed, because the dancers aren't used to that. The most that I've seen them do in here in the States and where I call is a right and left through out of waves, even though the turn through a boxinat would be perfectly legal. I've seen them do a turn through, a slide through, and a right and left through. You'd have to say rear back to see it, I think, in the beginning. Or take a step back. But I would think it would have a very high degree of difficulty. So we got keep track of too much. Swing through, boys run. Tag the line, girls turn back. Left touch a quarter, girls run. Wheel and deal. And wheel and deal, that's it. That's the whole tag the line, girls you turn back, left touch a quarter is going to be a lot to process.
Yeah, but it's gonna be a lot of process if you don't feed it to them all at once like that. Don't you parse it out a little bit as the music goes?
Yes, you would parse it as the music goes, obviously, but it's the point that I was making was a tagline of girls you turn back. I think I've gotten into something. Left touch a quarter and the girls run. It's just it's not that I would put it all to the like I would not stack it all like that, but the unfamiliar things, the tagline is fine, but the girls you turn back and left touch a quarter and then the girls run, that combination, even if I fed it to them slowly, it's a quick combination. How many beats does it take the girls to U-turn back? And then they have to process the left touch a quarter and the girls run, and that both of those are quick. No, I wouldn't read it off to them that way and sing lyrics like you might if you were doing trying to sing gloriously, but it's still, they're quick things in succession is my point.
You're saying the process time that they have to take was what bogs it down then?
Yes, exactly. It's not that any of these are difficult in and of themselves. It's the process time, because they're all slightly unusual, and the process time is a little longer than the time that it would take to dance it. Yeah. My husband just reminded me of a fact that if something takes a lot of processing, you need a longer call in between to break them up.
I do the same thing when I'm calling. If I'm trying to figure out where everybody is, I'll give them a longer call so I can watch the name repeat.
And it needs to be a longer call that doesn't take a lot of processing. Something that would be easy. Easy for you and easy for them at the same time.
What would you suggest putting in there after that girls turn back, just to break that up?
I wouldn't suggest it because it's a nice little module. But what you have to do is understand that the first time you'd have to say, girls, you turn back. You might break it up. You would break up the timing and say, ready with a left touch a quarter. Or something like that. As long as you're aware of the fact that it's going to be a difficult process, then you can be ready with helper words.
It also depends, Betsy, which way they turn back as well.
That's true. Because there's no body flow after tag the line to direct which way they turn, so they could go either way and make it more or less difficult.
Do walk it through, dance it through?
You might. That would be a way to make it work. Or sacrifice timing for the first time you call it, and they would actually have to come to a halt. So you tag the line all the way through, girls turn back, ready with a left hand touch a quarter. And the ready with a left hand will take way too long, way longer than what they would need to dance it, but it would give them the chance to process. Okay. Here we are. So then we've got touch a quarter, centers trade, swing through, girls run, box and at, right and left through, and slide through. Not all that difficult. It's just all of these again are going to be quicker. Swing through. It's got to be a swing through first. Then the girls run, box and net, right and left through, and slide through. And the other thing about that is you have the swing through and the girls run, and they're focused on the wave at that point in time. And the wave girls run converts the wave to a facing line, and then they have to focus across from them for the box and net. So they're changing the people with whom they're dancing in very quick succession. And I'm not saying that any of this is totally wrong. I'm saying that it may cause the dancers to falter the first time they run into these things.
Hey, Betsy, at that point, would you use an up to the middle and back to refocus?
Yeah, you could do that. You could use an up to the middle. Girls run, you got lines, go forward and back. Exactly. And it, that breaks it up, doesn't mess up your timing so much, but it gives you a chance to, it gives the dancers a chance to refocus. Yes. So the forward and back breaks it up a little, makes it easier. Back to the PowerPoint. Dancer expectation. So the centers in, centers cross run. You have sides half sachet, centers in, centers cross run. That's not expected because centers in cast off 3/4 works so nicely that I truly believe there are dancers who think it's all one call. Just like some other calls that we call in combination all the time. Okay. And the cross run is lesser used, especially from there.
Wasn't that an ends cross run?
What's that?
Repeat your question, Mark.
No, it was a centers cross run.
Oh, it was the centers? Okay, I thought I seen ends. I must have been in the wrong spot.
Centers in, centers cross run. Yeah. The ends cross run would have been even higher degree of difficulty, absolutely. So then we have right and left through, the sides half sachet, centers in, girls trade, centers cross run, tag the line, wheel and deal, zoom, and the center square through 3. That's not a module I recommend any of us memorize. And the sides half sachet, centers in, girls, I think it was girls trade, I have to check somewhere. There we are. Centers cross run, tag the line, face out, wheel and deal, zoom, and square through 3. They make it look really smooth.
They do, but I could hear a big ouch coming from the floor.
Yeah. Which leads me right into lacking smoothness. So we got touch a quarter, split circulate, walk and dodge, girls fold.
Sorry, I skipped ahead of the screen.
Oh, we skipped ahead. Okay. Lacking smoothness. Left spin the top. I read it off and I can't remember it. Ah. Ends cross run. Hinge. Guys, what do we got next?
Yeah.
Zoom. Oh, yes. Girls, you turn back. Well, let's see him dance this smoothly. Notice how those boys, after the left touch a quarter, they were going one way and they had to go the other for the zoom. It's not a good place to put it. The ouch from the floor would be there. Yeah, these guys were ready for it. So partway through the left touch a quarter, they already refocused their bodies for the zoom, but dancers wouldn't do that. Slide through, reverse, slide through, reverse flutter wheel, Dixie style to a wave, left swing through, girls run, I think that was it, wheel and deal. Notice that how the Taminations people just turned the Dixie style to a wave and the left swing through into a Dixie style to a wave, cast off 3/4 in the center's trade. But your average dancers, they expect after a Dixie style to a wave, a lot of us are in the habit of calling the boys trade. And for the boys not to trade causes dancers to falter.
That would go hand in hand with both dancer smoothness and dancer expectation, correct?
Yes, absolutely. As we got towards the end, some of these were running into each other.
You're calling right up my alley, Betsy. My dolls don't care, saying it all looks like it's something I would call. I would draw this up because my dolls don't care. They would be happy to do this.
Your dolls will be happy, but your dancers might not be. But that's why you need to be aware of it. It doesn't. I'm not saying that you don't want to call all of these things. I'm saying that you want to be aware that the live dancers may go, huh? And you want to be ready for why in the heck do they are they faltering? I have some friends who are very, very smart and newer callers, and they will come to me after calling someplace and say, I called this from here. Why didn't they do it? And I will say, oh, that's because blah, 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 and name what the degree of difficulty factor is.
Yes, Mel is constantly hammering that into me.
What degree of difficulty?
Well, my style of drawing up figures. He's always constantly pointing out these problems.
Well, you just need to be. It's not that it's wrong to call things that are different unless they really reek in the body flow. But what is wrong is to cause so much dancer consternation that they're going to get discouraged. You can call some of this stuff and get them through it because you are aware of why they're going to find it difficult. I don't always agree that they should find it difficult.
A good example, John, you had in one of your figures a Dixie style to a wave left swing through. And so that's to me is contrary to the dancer expectation.
Yes.
If you want to use that after your Dixie style to an ocean wave, use a balance, then a left swing through. You've broken up that flow, and then it just goes really nice because the dancers know that they had to stop, in, out, and they're ready to go left hand or right.
Yeah, even if they don't actually do the balance.
Yeah.
You know, it's all part of the learning curve. But Betsy, if you're finding these problems, are you slowly trying to bring your crowd up so these become more common, so you don't have to keep running into this issue here?
Yes. Yeah, that's the idea. Is you give it to them one step at a time and give them something a little different, and then you call some standard stuff, and then you give them something a little different again, and then you rebuild their confidence after each time you have caused them to be upset. If they can't do it, I have a caller friend who workshops it immediately. As soon as the dancers don't get it, he stops, and sometimes he jumps off the stage and he'll help them through it. And that to me is talking down to the dancers. That to me is not giving them enough chance. My rule is probably 3 times. If I'm calling something that's unusual and they don't get it, I'll get back to that sort of spot again. I'll call it, but I'll give it a little slower. I'll be ready for some helper words and whatever. And then I'll call it one more time with even more helper words. And if they don't get it then, that's it for tonight.
Betsy, could you comment if you switch to use that as a get out so that the surprise and the awkwardness becomes part of the get out? So you do the Alaman left after the Dixie style.
Yeah, that Alan would work. If you have to use something as a get out, and you're ready to do the Alaman left, they'll bobble, but they'll be, if they're right next to their corner, they're going to find them.
I have a little side question about that. It's on the call balance.
Yeah.
So certainly one way to make it harder for the dancers, and in a way that you probably don't want to, is to call something they don't know. So does anybody call balance anymore? Is it still part of the actual vote? I wish it was, but I'm just asking a question of opinions here, and especially since we have some people from around the world. Do dancers actually know how to do a balance, and does anybody ever call it?
And I teach it.
I call it.
Style only, probably.
I call it, but they don't dance it very well.
I call it on a circle, well, like a Alamo style.
It's still on the list.
Yeah.
When I learned to call, and when I was first learning to dance, Dixie style to a wave, usually with the patter words "boys" in the middle, and you balance there. That was like the most common thing, and it seems like somewhere along the way everybody stopped doing that.
Yes, they got into calling boys trade, and the balance went away. And they also certain things go in and out of fashion. We're talking about early on. I was using the call turn through, and I said people can't do it from anywhere. And here where I call, people can't do it anywhere except Alaman left your corner, turn through with your partner. But there used to be a get out, and I've revived it slowly for the clubs I call for, where you have an ocean wave in the middle and you call a swing through, a turn through, and there's your corner, Alaman left. In order to get people to do it, after it fell out of fashion, I had to go swing through, turn through, step ahead. There's your corner and Alaman left. And I had to tell them to step forward. But the corner was immediately in their face if they stepped forward. And that way I could again educate the dancers to do some more stuff that I think that they should be able to do.
The balance itself that Chris brought up, I think, is one of those movements that became part and parcel of the way of expressing word, Dixie style to an ocean wave and balance there, do si do to a wave and swing through, or what was the other one? I can't remember the third one, but it's terminology that was an actual movement that was used as filler words that became such a part of the movement. It was a crutch. It was only used that way, like take a peek, trade the wave. What do you do after it? And they were so overused that they got dropped. They weren't being used the way they were supposed to. Like balance is a great movement. Do si do to a wave is a great movement if it's used for what it's designed to do, not as a habit.
I was going to say, and if it's used sparingly.
I think that some of those movements like balance that are out of fashion were actually things that subtly in some way contributed to a style of choreography that was in some ways smoother than what a lot of people call today. Of course, today there's a lot of stop and go, but just the physical movements of doing those things, I think, somehow taking them away altered something desirable out of the dancing that we have today.
I can agree with that. If you go back to some of the old time stuff where you were able to time everything with 8 beats and 16 beats and stuff, and that was where you had the timing where the caller could pre-cue the first call and everything would come in so the dancers could start on the phrase, which we can't do necessarily. If I call heads square through 4 from a static square, even if I deliver the head square through 4 and the dancer, prior to the downbeat of the phrase and the dancers get beat 1, it takes them 10 beats from a static square to square through 4. So right then we've lost the downbeat of the phrase. You can give it to them more often, but it was a more relaxed and smoother type of dancing. If I want that, I go contra dancing.
I've seen balance used a couple different times at clubs that have, like, you get 2-3 squares out on the floor and you've got that square that's just not as fast as everybody else, and the caller will throw that balance in there, and that gives the slow square a chance to keep up with everybody else.
A good thought. That's another way of helping the dancers to succeed, which is what we're looking to do. I mean, basically, the reason we want to know what makes things difficult and why they're difficult is so that we can get the dancers through them. If you call, call something strange, then your best bet is to make them normal as soon as possible before they do it themselves.
Well, maybe because we're going to be coming back in and refreshing everybody, we can incorporate some of these movements that make it easier. Like
That could be a great idea. Yes.
I actually call the Dixie style to a wave and then put a left swing through quite a bit, but I always say you've got them by the left, and that gives them a few seconds to think about it, and they know it's coming.
That's the helper words you need to use. Exactly. That you've got and you probably called it often enough so your dancers or the dancers that are used to you are more comfortable with it now. You've taken away the degree of difficulty by making it more familiar.
Yeah, that happens.
Okay. So what is right? What is right is, to me, is what the dancers expect. It's what they're used to. I mean, I stuck to mainstream on this and we're talking about it, but the combination of, it used to be that you could say lead right and some of the dancers would circle to a line without any help because it was used lead right, circle to a line. Now I would expect probably they'd veer left. But either way, if there's certain things that are, the dancers expect that it's right. If you call a recycle from waves where I call, the dancers expect facing couples standard arrangement, period, end of sentence. Anything other than that, and they're going to start to throw things.
Hey, Betsy, have you ever done, instead of lead right, circle to a line, how about lead right, circle 4 3/4?
I've done that.
You ever done that?
Yes. I also stopped an entire floor. I wasn't intending to, but I decided to revisit directionally, because I didn't need the name, a call that used to happen, which was circle to a two-faced line. It's a circle left halfway and veer left. And I called heads lead right, circle left halfway, and veer left. I believe 2 couples on the floor did it. I stopped the entire floor because every other group had done a circle to a line. And I wasn't intending to stop the floor. I thought it was perfectly reasonable. It's an old call that's gone by the wayside. It's somewhere in somebody's glossary, but I remembered it. So I thought, why not use that combination? Well, now they've gotten used to me. So the clubs I call for now, if I call lead right, they will not necessarily circle to a line if I say circle.
I got to throw something in here from thinking way back to when I was first learning to call. One of the things that Betsy's telling you, and that everybody's telling you, is about expectations and to some degree keeping it simple by way of familiarity with what they expect and so forth. And one reaction as a caller that you might have is, oh, but that's awful. They should be able to do these things. And why is it, why won't they do them? And they should just do them. And you're right. However, that's not reality. And these techniques of exploiting familiarity and arranging things so that the call can hardly do something else after that, like the turn through to an Alaman left, and all these things, you can think of them as tricks or techniques that are going to get the dancers to trust you a little bit, so where you will be able to do things that are a little bit different with them. Maybe even just a few calls later, or a few tips later, or whatever. But these are so valuable to be able to. Before you can screw around with them, you have to totally bring them to success.
Yes.
That goes back to what you're doing when you're teaching classes, and I try to teach my dancers to dance to anybody out there calling, not just me.
But not everybody does that. Unfortunately, what we have to work with, now I know in Australia you have your own club, so that's fine. you know what the dancers can do, they know what you can do, and everybody can work together. But here, I travel around, I'm not, not all over the world, but I travel in the East Coast, up and down the East Coast, and I call it the dancers who were taught by somebody else. So I have to understand what they haven't had, and what they haven't been exposed to. And the other thing is, it's what the callers they're used to. I may come in once or twice a year. What the callers they're used to call for standard patterns is what they expect. And I may not have the same expectations, so we may both be surprised. I forget where I was and I forget what the call was, but I called something and I said, "Oh, they don't do a lot of that around here, do they?" And everybody had to laugh because I'd scared them out of their shoes with whatever combination I called. It wasn't intentional. It was something I would expect they could do at home.
And when you talk about what is right, what is the wrong, or what is the difficulty, if you will, on the sequence that you have there? Is that the dancer expectation or the caller expectation of the dancers?
Dancer expectation. I believe what it is the walk and dodge will have the girls walking and the boys dodging, which is not standard here, and then the girls fold. Let's try it, yeah. So we got the girls facing in for the walk and dodge. And girls fold. It's lesser used. So those two don't meet dancer expectations. So that was what I would, it's more what it's more what some of us callers have trained the dancers to do. Ends cross run. That was mentioned earlier.
Big fat fingers, little keys. I did it again.
Yes. Running from the outside in is rare, and cross running is even rarer.
And adding a spin the top from a left-hand wave just adds to that degree of difficulty, plus the unusual call.
Plus the girls are in the middle, so they have to move up, which is lesser used where I call.
And
as I said, there are plenty of places where I'm sure they'll go with that and say, "Oh, then no problem," but not where I'm calling. So you compounded the whole issue with the cross run and the left-handed spin the top, and then they're doing, quote, the other part. Part of the cross run, part of using cross run from the outside in was to see what else you could do afterwards that would be reasonably smooth. Because if you're going to use something that's less than usual, you need to have something that's really smooth to help the dancers succeed, because that way you won't compound the issue by giving them whiplash.
So that one is the swing through, fine, ends cross run, makes it difficult, but then you go right into a left-hand spin the top with the girls in the middle to start, to a left-hand recycle with the girls leading. That's just difficult on difficult. That's one of those combination type things that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as I got to the combination, things were getting stacked up in my head. The girls' cross run here is going to be from the outside in. And they're going to trade in the middle and spin the top. And again, that's going to be half sashayed, I believe. Let's try it out. The girls cross ran. Yeah, the girls' trade was added to smooth out after the cross run. But I wouldn't not necessarily like this. It's too tight.
And there's no room to breathe out to give maneuverability.
Exactly. Because you've got the title set up. Or the two waves end to end. And that's something else that's not mentioned, but should be a factor that you should consider is space. That's why it's uncomfortable sometimes to do a ladies' chain if you have two couples in the center and a starting double pass-through position. You have the center two ladies chain. It's tight. It's not comfortable. So it may cause some problems, even though it might be legit. Okay, so our last one is left touch a quarter. Again, as soon as you start with the left, split circulate, hinge for the left, boys trade, spin the top, recycle, box and at. The box and at tells me that the spin the top and recycle were half sashayed. The box and at normalized the setup, if they got that far. Yep, there they were half sashayed.
That's a left-hand recycle too.
Yep.
Boys leading.
Yeah.
Which is also quite uncommon these days.
Right. There was a big debate for quite a while about if you're going to do a recycle from a left-handed wave, should it be with the boys leading, which would be more common to have the boys on the end for the recycle, or should it be with the girls leading because it would leave them in a standard couple, which would make them feel that everything was okay at the end. There was a big debate. It was never decided which way was better, but people had different ways of thinking about it. Neither one is necessarily wrong. It's just what you're going to work with first.
I usually teach the recycle from a left-handed wave with the girls first, but then I introduce it with anybody on that end.
When I teach recycle, and I get to the point where I'm going to have them do it from something other than the boys on the ends, because my strategy is, okay, let's get them to do the call at all. So I'll do it with the boys on the ends a few times. Okay, you see how that works, and already that's kind of burned in there that the boys are on the end and they're leading, and so you fairly soon after that better disabuse them of the notion that it'll always be that way. But so when I go to mix them up there from either mixing the sex and or mixing the polarity of the wave there. I'll mix up, I'll have half sashayed one of the couples. So whatever they're doing, two of the people are going to feel like they're doing something very much like the normal thing, and then the other people are going to feel like they're doing something new. And that way, at least somebody is probably going the right way right from the get-go.
Yeah, I agree. When I'm changing who's doing what, the first thing I do is change half the people, so that half the people are in their standard. If I were the first time I introduce spin the top, I might introduce it or the first variation I might introduce would be something like this, because half the people are where it feels good. They may or may not be able to help the other half. We can probably, that's the end of the sequences, so we can probably, just open it for questions, comments, etc. Although we've been doing well with putting in good comments.
Well, there's a few comments that came in. Some of it on Taminations was where the dancers put their hands. For those of you that are using computer programs to do your choreography, just remember that the computer programs are written for computer programs. They put hands at the ends of sequences. Don't always follow the hand contact on the computer because it's not the same as dancers. A lot of comments came in about the use of the word balance, who uses it, who doesn't. Comment that Jerry Story uses it an awful lot from Ocean Waves, was first called balance, was part of the movement, balance forward, balance back, sometimes separate, to put that dancing break in. There's a lot of talk about standard positioning. If you're going to be using difficult movements or using a movement with a difficulty level to it, or a combination with a difficulty level, get them to something they know very quickly. Don't just keep dancing.
Absolutely.
Or mixed. Mike noted that about 95% of classes around the world do a walk and dodge first, with the boys walking and girls dodging. A few others made comments about walk and dodge. It very rarely gets beyond that, which is why it's so difficult.
Yes.
What else we got? Yes. There was another comment. I think Mike summed this up. There's about 4 or 5 comments about how teaching, this is how you were talking about degree of difficulty and when you present it. But in essence, I think Mike Callahan summed this up best. The way the call is taught the first time is the way the dancers remember it most of the time.
Yes. If you don't consciously reteach it other ways, that may be the way that's burned into them. And especially if they get practice with the most standard all the time, and they don't get practice with anything else, then they're simply not going to accept that it can be done from there, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Well, Betsy, that's we're now officially 10 minutes over on the presentation, and I noticed there was a lot of interaction, which is great. It means there's a lot of people interested in actually understanding what difficulty is. I appreciate you taking us past. Degree of difficulty is not just dancing by definition and technical definition. It has to do with dancer expectation, dancer capability, level of the movements you're calling, what they expect, left-handed, right-handed variations, and do they even know who you are, your own voice, or if it's raining and the day ends with the letter Y? All of those things will add to the degree of difficulty, and you as the caller have to balance it. So
yeah, I think it was what Chris said about you have to build their confidence, and you can't think less of the dancers because they don't do what you expected. Because guess what? Guess who trained them? It wasn't the dancers who trained themselves to do it only one way. It was the callers, whoever they were, who trained the dancers to dance the way they dance. If they don't dance up to a different caller's expectations, then what we need to do is change it just enough to stretch them a little. I'm not gonna unless it's a club that says we want to do everything from everywhere, and if we don't get it, show us why. Other than that, I'm not going to be judgmental of the dancers because they didn't do what I expected. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to help them do what I expect.
So, rule
There
of
is
thumb, stretch for success, I guess.
There's a club in Pennsylvania called the Unconventional Squares, and they want to be challenged, and they want to do things from different ways, and they want to see how it's done. But most people don't want to be told that they didn't learn what they were told they learned.
Yeah. Well,
Betsy,
thank you very much, Betsy. I'm going to open the floor up to everybody so you guys can unmute yourselves. I've got more than one screen of people going, so if you do want to make a comment or ask a question, you are going to have to speak up, waving your hand. You may not be on my screen, so I won't see
Guido
you.
is ready.
Yeah, I'm missing point number 11 on your list.
Which is?
Dancers don't dance correctly.
That's judgmental. We shouldn't be publishing that on the list.
But that's a point. You had the call balance was quite some discussion. I have seen callers teach it correctly, but dancers usually, well, let me use the word execute. They execute the call, and
you mean they kill it?
Yeah. They don't dance it correctly, and even though you give them balance as a help to establish maybe an ocean wave in a waveform, they still have a line, and balance has a definition.
Yes.
Where you take a step forward, but your hands don't go behind your shoulders.
Nope.
So
that's part of how we've inadvertently trained them badly in another way, which is getting them used to certain kinds of, let's say, non-optimal timing. And so if you present them with an opportunity to dance it, even though you give them exactly the right amount of time, they might not do it, and they might shortcut like a balance or something, because it just doesn't flow with the timing that they're unfortunately used to.
I think a lot of that is like what Mike Callahan was saying. When Jerry Story uses balance, he says balance forward, pause, balance back. He intentionally creates that for the dancers. After 2 or 3 times, they will go forward and back. I'll come back to you in a second, Guido. Jeff?
Yeah, I think we don't use seesaw very often, and after a left swing, a left square through, seesaw if you want to get them to a left-handed wave or something. That is seen to go on by the by.
Seesaw to a left-hand wave has been dropped off the definitions a while
Has
ago.
it?
Yeah.
I apologize then for that one.
That seesaw to a left-hand wave
yeah.
is very rarely used anymore.
Right. The other thing I noticed that Betsy didn't use was spin the top from facing couples. And I think, why not square through 4, spin the top or something without a do-si-do?
No reason why you couldn't, and it would have a higher degree of difficulty. Just wasn't something that something that I ended up in my choreography for this group.
Oh, but fair enough. The rest was great though. Thank you.
You could do it. You could do it if you wanted to make it a higher degree of difficulty. Call square through 4. No, left square through 4, left spin the top from the facing couples.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Betsy, would you like?
I'll tell you a little anecdote about a new caller who just a few years ago started calling, and he went to his first big convention, went in the Plus Hall where he encountered one of the first Plus squares of his life that wasn't dancers that were accustomed to him. And he opened his tip with bow to the partner, corners all, heads spin the top, and then he didn't understand the sad thing that happened immediately, and not a good first outing, let's say. And you can discuss, if it's not really obvious, the several things that make that unreasonably hard in that context.
Betsy,
Alan?
if you want to address that, Betsy, then we'll go to Guido, and then Alan Kerr's got a comment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the thing about the head spin the top is it's normally not done from a square set. It's normally done standard after swing through, so they're quote half sachet. They're dancing the other part, the one they're not used to, and they're further away, so they don't relate to each other as quickly. Other than that, there's no problem.
Oh, well, there's and the sides are a little bit in the way too, because they got to breathe to let them make a wave even.
Yes.
Guido.
Yeah, I'm still at balance. What I just wanted to add as a last sentence to it, balance is one of two calls where you have to control, where you have to put your concentration on your feet. And at least in mainstream, we're just how do you call it in English? A basin where you collect the rainwater.
Oh, a bucket?
Well, more than a bucket, but you have a pond where you collect rainwater or something. And we are a mainstream, at least in Germany, we are such a pond for talented non-dancers.
Oh, reservoir?
Reservoir, yeah.
Yes.
We're a reservoir for people who have a talent not to dance.
I understand. Yes. Well, I go back long enough so that I can remember discussions about when balance wasn't just forward and back, when it was like it's used in contra dancing or something, you balance and swing, and whether the discussion was whether you stepped on your right foot and crossed your left over or stepped on your left foot and crossed your right over first. I prefer a balance forward and back into a swing, because if you balance forward and back, then you have leverage to pull yourself into the swing very quickly. But here in the States, the swing is atrophied to, I won't say what. It would
Well,
not
it's a
be
star
ladylike.
through to a promenade.
What?
It's a star through to a promenade.
Yeah. No. Oh, no. Not here in the States. It's not just a star through. You have to crank the girls around like you're working a pepper grinder or a pepper mill, and then fling them across your body into the promenade.
Yeah.
You didn't say that out loud, did you, Betsy?
No. You never heard me say that.
Alan Kerr has a comment, and then John Jurgens has a comment.
Betsy, I'd like you to comment on the move or the tendency with SSD, and some callers are already moving that way to symmetry. How you feel that might change the nature of the organisation and the difficulty for a lot of people. I think it should improve it, don't you?
I think yes. If you use a program like SSD, and you work on calling right-handed and left-handed combinations in balance, I think that would take away that whole thing that I kept saying about when you start with the left hand, you've automatically made it more difficult. Because if you use that more often, then the dancers will be better able to do it. If you work on SSD and there are fewer calls to teach within a certain amount of time, then you're more relaxed and you can do a better job of giving the dancers an example, example, but practice on various ways of doing it rather than just the main standard one and move on to call, because you got to get through, whatever in certain, in a lot of places, not all, but they're going to teach in one season. They're going to attempt to teach in one season here in the States, from dancer walking in the hall to dancing all the calls at basic, mainstream, and plus, except they won't. They'll just skim over the ones that are lesser used. but they got to get into the plus calls because it's a class. The class is being sponsored by a club that dances plus, and God forbid that they should give up dancing their plus to welcome in the new dancers. I didn't say that out
Don't
loud.
hold back. How do you really feel? John, you had a comment. You need to unmute, John. John Jurgens, you had a comment?
There I am. I made it. I'd like to say hi to Jennifer in Tokyo because it's been a while since I've seen her. Also, Betsy, the whole point of this discussion is it because the dancers don't want to dance the more intricate patterns, or because the callers aren't teaching the dancers more than just a certain amount of calls? I mean, I've got a caller here his basic philosophy is if you don't keep calling all of the calls, the dancers won't realize that those calls are still there. So in order to solve the problem of this discussion, is it more the dancers or the callers have to do more practice for the callers or for the dancers? I mean, as a newbie caller, I mean, I have to do step 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10 constantly.
Yes.
We have to spend more of those steps for the dancers so that we're able to call more of things that we want to call.
Yes, we have to. In order to make the dancers more comfortable at things that are currently difficult, we have to show them how and continue to give them practice so that the things become comfortable. That's basically what you need to do. When you're teaching classes and it gets quite complicated, as a class teacher, you owe it to the dancers to call every single thing that has been taught every single night more than once and more than one way.
Right.
After a certain amount of time, you run into a factor that there aren't enough hours in the class to get that done. But then you have to be aware of it. I keep, that you've seen the little check-off lists from Caller Lab that say what you've done. I check that when I'm teaching a class and I have time, I check them off, religiously, and then I'll make a list after the class is over. I'll make a list of anything that I didn't call, and that night, and make sure that it's going on and gets reviewed in the first tip of the next class. And I had been teaching. When I'm teaching classes and when I'm calling periodically, I will look at a list in the break. My husband does rounds. I've got time. I'll look at a list and I'll make a note. I have tons of what used to be flyers or notes or whatever on scrap paper cut up, and I'll make a note. Okay, this tip I want to go over and review, right and left through, and then I want to also use call this, call that, call something else, and I'll make a list of goals for that particular tip that I want to accomplish for this time. And I'll go through that. Now, I also teach advanced and challenge, and before the pandemic hit, on one of the evenings I was doing a combination class that was C1, Challenge 1, and plus. So every other tip was plus, and every other tip was C1 class. And I wrote all of my choreography for the challenge, even though I could sight call challenge, because I wanted to keep the papers so that when I went home, I sat down at the dining room table with the checkoff list for C1, and I would mark it. I'd take an hour or so and mark off every call they had, and then make a list of what calls I hadn't used that they had been taught, and those went into the choreography for the first tip next time. Now, the plus is a shorter list, and I could quick sneak in what I hadn't done in plus, and I could check my plus off as the people were changing rooms. Because this club runs everything all at once. They had in the other room, there was another caller who was teaching advanced and mainstream in alternating tips. And the idea is the advanced people can come over, they can help with the mainstream class, or they can come over and help with the plus class, and the challenge people can help with any of the classes wherever they're needed. And so they go back and forth, and that's when I got to check off my plus class list. But if I don't do that, then I'm going to neglect something, and then who is paying the price? Not me.
Yeah, I understand, but it doesn't make a difference what program you're calling, basic, mainstream, plus, advanced. It all comes down to the callers just need to keep calling more and more things that are on the list so that the dancers are more familiar with those things, and we won't have to run into problems like what you're talking about here.
Yes, and we need to make sure we break up the combinations that we're so comfortable to call.
Yes.
You know,
what you're saying is if you don't use it, you lose it.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. If we don't use it, we lose it. And if we keep using it the same way, we'll never know how to do it otherwise.
I have been known to say out loud, and I'll say it here out loud, that I think the reason that follow your neighbor is always followed by and spread is because the callers don't want to deal with a left-handed wave. Period. End of sentence.
I was given a challenge when I started calling, and I rejected it after the first attempt because I ended up paying people to dance to me. And I say that tongue in cheek, but it was actually valid. It's along the lines of what John was saying. There's two Kims that I learned to dance with in Germany, and they had a deal with both of their clubs. And that was, if they could tell them what calls they did not use over the period of a month, 4 or 5 weeks, they'd give them $5 for every call that they didn't use. And he'd record them over the period of the month and check off his list to make sure
who gave who $5?
He would pay the dancer, any dancer that come up and told him what call that he didn't call that last month would be $5. And I was doing about, well, $15 a dancer. And I said, I'm not going to play this game because I'm not good enough and I'm just learning. But they would do that. And that was their own little private get. But they were both full-time callers and they enjoyed it.
Yeah. There's a club in southern New York State, and their dances alternate. One week they might be they're doing plus, and another week they're doing mainstream, and it's like the nights that are plus are all plus, and the nights that are mainstream are all mainstream, but some of the more experienced dancers are there. They're helping out. They're part of the officers, etc. So I'm calling a mainstream dance one night, and somebody came up to me next to the last tip, and they said, "Oh, Betsy, you have a reputation for calling every call on the list. And we noticed you haven't called," and they listed 3 or 4 calls. And I said, "You're right. And I also haven't called," and I listed 2 more. And I said, "But I got another tip." And in that last tip, we got them all in.
Betsy, Don Beck just sent me a message. He said he had planned to be here and say hi, but he passes on his greetings. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here, but he definitely wants to watch the recording.
Cool.
So has anybody else got any comments, questions, queries? The floor is open for Betsy. You don't get a chance to pick her brains very often, so feel free. She's opened up her skull and all the gray matter's there for display.
That's it.
Thanks, Betsy. You did a great job.
Thank you, Terry.
Yes, Simon.
Hello, Mel. Yes, good evening. We'll say good night. Nice to see Betsy again. Long time no see. And
yes.
We'll catch up with you next time. We've now got 1:30 in the morning, so time for bed. Night all.
Very good, Betsy. Very good class.
Thank you.
Very good coverage.
That's only early in the morning.
Yes, indeed. I'm impressed with the dedication of people who come at weird hours.
Ross here. John Casey gave me a good hint because I'm a learner caller. He said write every move, like for mainstream, on a card, and that night go home, take out all the moves that you've called, and then next week make sure you use those. And he said by the end of the month you've gone through all of them and you know you haven't missed any. And I thought that was a good system, so I've copied that from John. Thank you, John.
That's a great idea. You can write. I had some callers I was working with, and I challenged them. I said, I want you to write some modules, because they've been attending these sessions periodically. I want you to write modules that use calls that you don't normally use.
Yeah, but on top
I'm
of
actually
that, you
doing
should,
that now.
but Roz, on top of that, you should do the calls, not just the calls. You should do the calls from different positions and left and right-handed too.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, when I was showing you the cards, on the top of each card is the formation that you're going to dance it from, and I'd have a series of those.
Uh-huh. That's a good idea. Yeah, because when you're a newer caller, when you're a newer caller, a lot of times you haven't transitioned to speaking the language fluently. I claim that square dancing is a language. It may be English words, but it's a separate language. And people who learn to dance, they learn to understand the language, but they don't have command to speak it. So it's like when I first learned a language, I might understand what somebody else is saying in that foreign language, but heaven knows I can't reply because I can't think of any of the words. And a lot of times newer callers can't think of any of the calls, so they keep calling the same ones over again. So if you list the formation and then make a list of all the calls that can be done from that formation, that's what's challenging people now if they're doing Zoom dances with two couples. What can you do on each list from facing couples or for motion waves or for 4 people? And how can you make it work?
A lot.
I was going to say an awful lot. Yeah. I write a lot of two-couple material for that reason.
Yes, Jeff.
But for the newer callers, if you want to learn how to, what a call is doing, try to write a get out with each call that leads from that call directly into a promenade, wrong way promenade, element left, right and left grand, wrong way grand, whatever it is that you have, where you get the dancers back to their original partner and you get them back home. So you have maybe a slide through to a right and left grand, where you find a slide through to an element left. Where do you have to have the dancers? What do they have? You know, this helps you a lot to understand the call. And it also teaches you how to get there. And your dancers will get a whole lot of variety because you have to get to the position with that call.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite difficult for you as the caller.
Yes. I thought Jeff had something.
Yeah, I've just had a look at my definitions, which came out on the 20th of February this year, and seesaw is in there.
Yeah, seesaw is still there as a movement, but seesaw to a left-hand ocean wave in 2003, I believe the mainstream committee voted to have seesaw defined only as the left-hand walk around seesaw to a left-hand ocean wave, with the determination was to use a left shoulder.
It doesn't say that in the definitions though.
No, but it's in, now you can make me look it up.
What is the definition?
I was going to say the workaround is people use a left shoulder do-si-do to a left-handed wave.
Yeah.
But it's not a do-si-do. A seesaw is not a do-si-do.
No.
I know, but I mean, he's wanting to use that seesaw to an ocean wave to get to the left-handed wave, and the left-handed do-si-do achieves the same purpose of getting to
Yeah.
A left-hand.
So here's what you got. Formerly, seesaw was occasionally used as a left do-si-do. So it was seesaw to a left-hand ocean wave. In 2003, they dropped it, dropped that application of seesaw and requested callers use a left do-si-do, but seesaw itself is still number 27. Yeah,
29.
And Mel, do you think it's because the seesaw is a forward moving motion, not a back-to-back motion like a do-si-do is?
Well, a seesaw when it was written was from a corner box, a left shoulder do-si-do. That's the way it was initially done.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I know walk around your corner.
That's not the way it was initially. That was one of the ways.
Right.
Yeah. But
walk around your corner is a forward motion, and in my teaching of seesaw, it's a forward motion.
Yeah.
Seesaw is a forward motion, and if you read the definition that was up on screen, it leaves you facing back the other way.
Correct.
So, because you keep your left shoulder adjacent. I personally claim that walk around your corner and seesaw are flirting moves. There are socialization moves. You make eye contact and smile a lot and make them wonder what you're thinking.
Aren't they pretty much a hey for four?
Right.
No, hey is a weave the ring done in a line.
Oh, okay. There's something that they do at Contras that's walk around your corner, seesaw, and then just keep doing that.
Actually,
and it's totally it's totally flirty.
In contra dancing, they do a gypsy, which is like a seesaw, but now that's fallen out of favor because it's politically incorrect.
Mm.
The term gypsy is so they're using walk around your partner or walk around whoever instead of gypsy because they've decided it's politically incorrect.
You mean because it uses the word gypsy?
Yeah, because supposedly I thought the gypsy had to do with you could swirl your sets and the gypsies were flirtatious, but somebody has decided that it's because you have to keep your eye on the gypsies all the time because they might steal something, so therefore it's politically incorrect.
Like half breed through and a lot of other things. No.
If it runs in society.
Awkward silence as several of us go, now don't get me started on this.
I'm not. I'm deliberately
Trust
not
me.
saying anything.
I will walk away from political stuff on square dancing sites.
I think we should have a Zoom session on political correctness and square dancing. It should last
No!
about 3.5 seconds.
No!
Does Zoom have a voice changing feature we can use?
No! I protest.
Well, you didn't hear what Mel said afterwards. It would last 3.5 seconds. Where we'd say, it is inappropriate, and that would be the Zoom session.
There have been so many discussions on aspects of political correctness, why we change a name, larks and ravens as opposed to boys and girls in a gay and lesbian square dance club, and why don't you say this? And people that really take offense and discomfort with boys and girls are the people that are calling that aren't dancing.
It's actually it's I found larks and ravens more prevalent in contra dancing than in the gay clubs.
Yeah, and half breed through, or I don't call it there's alcohol being served, or dressing and all this. And these side digressions on political correctness take away from, why don't we just get out there and have some fun dancing?
Well,
hey, by the way, speaking of larks and ravens, if any of you are doing one night stand party nights and that sort of thing, you might, and you will, come across groups where the gender distribution is just totally out of whack, like it's all girls, or you could be anything. And so so you can do pretty normal choreography with larks and ravens.
And in case you're wondering what larks and ravens stand for, larks are on the left, ravens are on the right. L and R. It's not the lark as being the person who would be doing the girls part. Nope. The larks are on the left. Ravens are on the right.
Yep.
It helps you to remember. I one time, talking about what Chris was saying, was doing I think it was a 4th grade group, and that 4th grade, they don't want to dance with somebody of the opposite gender. They'd rather be boiled in oil. So I had boys with boys and girls with girls, and I'm trying to figure out what to designate them if I wanted to designate them. And I decided to work on where they were when they promenaded. So I used innies and outies for inside promenade and outside promenade. They thought it reflected their belly buttons, and some of them changed sides depending on what type of belly button they had.
Oh, that's a great story.
Well, if you do a party night and you get all the and you get like your all girls square here and your all boys square here, or if you even choreographically arrange them that way, then instead of doing the Venus and Mars and thing, when you go to reunite them back, you can use the call boil in oil. So you can. Every boy will get a girl. Now you're going to boil in oil, like that.
Now you know why you've got yourself with the camera off, Chris.
Yeah.
No way you could have said that with a straight face.
In such a case, I use mostly blues and greens.
Blues and greens works.
Well, B for boys and G for girls, and the second letter is left and right.
Mm-hmm. Actually, a lot of times if I'm doing one of those beginner nights, party nights where it's a lot of younger people, and I will do head sides, partners, corners, opposites, and I don't worry about gender at all. I just leave the term out.
I don't.
It depends on.
I've done a lot of young people, a lot of older people. I've done a few in mixed society, all women clubs, some gay and lesbian clubs. My only time that I was uncomfortable was calling boy and girl at a gay and lesbian club. That was the first time I called her, and I was put in my place very quickly. It says, I'm dancing the girls' part. Say girl so we know what the hell you're talking about. I'm dancing the boys' part. Say boy so, you know. Yeah, that was my discomfort. That wasn't their discomfort. And, you know, somebody said larks and ravens. It was one of the gay club's callers come up, and he said, you know, a lot of the dancers don't like that because lark is left, raven is right, but the calls are gender specific. So, you know, the right-hand dancer does this, but the right-hand dancer on a slide through is not the right-hand dancer when you start, and it gets confusing. Boy and girl doesn't get confusing. We're dancing the boys' part, we're dancing the girls' part. And it's so subjective depending on where you are and who you're talking to.
Yeah.
That even that goes into the degree of difficulty. You have to know your floor, you have to know your audience, and if you're not comfortable, they're definitely not going to be comfortable with you calling.
Well, I go back far enough so I was calling when it was ladies and gents, not boys and girls. In fact, I find it truly ironic that as the average dancer population got older, the terminology got younger.
It's now pensioners.
I think Don Beck has a story of one of his first times calling overseas, and I think it was might have been in the Czech Republic when he was calling, and he said, you know, men and women instead of boys and girls. That didn't work at all.
Yeah, because it's not a term they've learned.
No.
They don't speak
We're having
English.
a fancy hat contest going on here.
I see that.
Roz, where's your hat? Go get a hat, Roz.
Sorry?
You
gotta go get a hat.
I'm just looking at Darren.
I can't because I'm at the flat. I'm not at home.
Oh.
I'm looking at Darren Taylor's
Sorry,
comment.
I've got my brother with me, so I was just talking to him a minute.
Looking at Darren Taylor's comment.
We did wigs last week. We're doing hats today.
Darren Taylor made a comment about the larks and the ravens and the boys and girls. He said we should just go shirts and skins.
I'll do skins. I'll do skins.
If you're changing larks and ravens and all that sort of thing, as a dancer, if you swap sexes all the time, it's all right if you're the same sex all night. Sometimes
Are you talking about your sex life or dancing?
I'm a boy, I'm a boy, I'm a boy. If you've got to suddenly swap and think, hang on, I'm not a boy anymore, what are they calling it? That may actually
Exactly. Well,
no, Ross, we don't want to know about your sex life, okay?
Well, what was I gonna say? I actually called men and ladies for a long time, and then I switched over. But I looked at a floor that I was calling to at my home club, which started on the Rutgers University campus and then left campus, but you know, we were getting into second generation. So people had kids and they're bringing their kids, and the little kids are learning to dance. And I felt really stupid calling a 6-year-old boy a man. So I went to boys and girls for whatever, because, you know, maybe I'll make him feel really big, or maybe he won't relate at all. So I figure he knows he's a boy. I'll use boys and girls.
Hey, Betsy, on using on that same topic, I've always thought me being a younger person, calling older people boys and girls was exactly the same. As a younger caller coming up, I always thought calling people who were much older boys and girls was a little bit insulting. So, yeah.
Well, I just go with the terms as they're written. But one thing you perhaps want to think about is to keep it equal. So if I say girls run, men trade, that's unequal.
Yeah.
And some people might get upset. If I say girls run, boys trade, then we kept it equal. And, again, that's politically correct.
Maybe politically correct, Betsy, but I'm a firm believer that any man or any woman that wants equality with a man lacks ambition. You guys, passed us a long time ago.
Well, I have been known not to be politically correct. Years ago, there was a term that maybe the callers still use, but it irritated one of our dancers on that college club, and we were still on campus then. And the term was four little ladies chain. I don't know, maybe it's because it's alliterative or something, but people would say four little ladies chain. And Natalie thought that was just horrible. And she goes, and she made a face and pranced around with her hand. And I said it one time accidentally. And she made this face, and I got ticked off and said, the four big broads chain back. She didn't like that either.
One of my favorite caller was always Lee Kopman, and I was at a dance one time, and as like a C3 dance or something, and he calls from a squared set. He says, "All the good girls chain the ring." And well, everybody did the call, and then he paused for a moment, and he said, "Oh, you all went across, huh?"
One that I picked up was four dishwashers promenade, and all the boys tend to go in, and I usually follow that. You liars.
Yeah.
If,
I found a hat.
I see that. I'm proud.
Very good.
It's a handkerchief.
That's all right. I've got a mouse cover balanced on my head. Which my mouse cover is shaped like a mouse.
Yeah, we got 9 hats on here now. We're going to start a trend.
My father used to get a handkerchief because he was bald, so to keep the sun off, he'd get a handkerchief, tie a corner in each one, and make a hat out of it. So that's my father's hat.
That's your father's hat. That's very cool.
I hope it's a clean one, though.
Yes, it is. I borrowed it from a brother. I made sure it was clean.
I have lots of hats. I have a ton of hats. Just like my wig.
I don't have any hats handy, and I don't really want to put my COVID mask on my head, so.
Mine's not a COVID mask. It's a whale watchers. Yesterday, when we were out doing the whales out at the head at Port Elliot, the wind was 3 degrees Celsius.
Oh, wow.
So we put these on.
What kind of whales were you watching?
Southern right whales here. There's one here with a calf.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine up in Washington watches the orcas and the humpbacks and the grays all the time. She lives out on one of the islands.
Could I say something about the men and women and girls and boys and that kind of thing?
Sure.
Here in Sweden, as you know, we're very conscious of equal rights, and men and women earn their own money and that kind of thing. And sometimes when we get callers from abroad, maybe from the US or Great Britain actually, they use things like all the pretty ones promenade inside the ring and these kind of things. And actually there are some very, very good, well, one very, very good British English caller, and we don't like dancing to him because he says these things, and in Sweden it just doesn't go down right. So I would think that any foreign caller coming to Sweden should be very, very, very careful about using any of these words.
Well, let me ask you something, Helen. If he said sexy ones, which would not be gender specific, would that bother people?
Yeah, that's one of the clues. Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing.
So if it's not gender specific, like, yeah.
Well, they might still think it's gender specific.
Yeah, even if you call 4 sexy ones promenade in Sweden, you'll get a dirty look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We don't
in the United States, if you call all the pretty ones promenade, you'll get somewhere between 3 and 6 people in there.
Yeah, well, that's what we do too, and well, we don't like it. I thought that this is a very good chance to say it.
Yes.
We don't like it. It's not sort of in our culture to do any of that kind of stuff anymore.
So it would be 4 ladies promenade or four.
Yeah, that's of course 4 ladies. Of course 4 ladies. You have to tell them what to do, but not the pretty ones or the sexy ones or the good lookings or the I mean, who's good looking? Everyone, and you shouldn't. And as one caller I think says something about your partner, and if you're not pleased with her, swing her anyway, or something like that. Yeah. All these things, we just don't like it.
They're jokes that may not be well received. And the other thing is, if you're calling for people in a country where, I'm not saying for Sweden, but if you're calling for anybody in a country where English is not their first language, you shouldn't be using those terms anyway, because it isn't what they've learned for square dancing.
Correct.
That's true. Can I ask, Peter, what's it like in Germany? Is it the same in Germany? Do you feel?
That's what I was going to comment on. When I started with ECTA in the 80s, one of the big sessions that was in the caller training and with ECTA when you went there was all about cultural awareness. And that's something not left in. Cultural awareness has become sort of labeled as a term of regional differences and related to only choreography nowadays, as opposed to cultural awareness as to what is appropriate in a specific culture. In China and Japan, very different culture on how to approach people, the relationship between men and women. Russia is very different. Sweden's very different. Sweden, you can get away with saying a lot of things. At the end of a tip, you promenade your partner home. If you don't like her, change her. Oh, nobody's ever going to take me up on that one. You can get away with that joke, but you cannot get away with swing one that you like. Because that says, oh, well, what if somebody doesn't like to swing? What are you actually saying about them because she's got a sore shoulder? Oh, you don't like me? What? Those kinds of things on cultural awareness are left out, mainly because unless you were dancing in a country with foreign callers, such as Germany, where you had a lot of American or Canadian callers, or places where there were American bases where cultural awareness was part of it, it was left out. And when we go to visit, we tend not to look at that aspect of it. We're looking more at choreography. And choreography, I think, Daryl, you said this earlier, choreography is one of the smaller parts of being a caller. And I don't know if that was you or if that was Dawn, but the choreography itself is one of the smaller parts of what it takes to be a caller. There's a lot more to it.
I think more to it. Yeah, I would like to say, in well over 50 years of calling, I've never had anybody seem to get upset when I say boys run or girls run. I don't think I've ever used terminology other than boys and girls.
Well, I think that became the term for the call, the accepted term. But I had a caller friend in New York who used to use 4 girls chain. And to me, the call is ladies chain, and that was wrong. Had nothing to do with whether or not I was a girl or a lady. It had to do with that wasn't the name of the call that I learned.
4 ladies chain. That would be an occasion where I would use ladies.
Yeah.
Well, there were comments that have come back. One of these that came up a lot is in the note services. This actually came up with the one that Barry's doing recently. Is we were asked, why do we use men and women instead of boys and girls? And even in the definitions, it says to use boys, girls, ends, centers, men, women interchangeably when appropriate. So dancers get used to it. And the reason is it becomes a standard. But those standards, as Barry pointed out to me a lot of the times, when somebody with a position of relevant influence uses terminology, that terminology becomes the standard or the way to do it. And if somebody like me uses a piece of bad choreography, then somebody's going to copy it. Like you used, for instance, touch a quarter and zoom, okay, without a circulate in there. Nothing really wrong with it, except it's so contrary to the dancer expectation, the flow, that forward motion, forward and away. People don't dance like that. Put a circulate in there and it works.
Yes, but I used it as an example of what wasn't smooth.
That's right. If somebody like me or somebody like you or Daryl or Barry uses that, a brand new callers, oh, they use that, that's going to be good. I have to really watch myself because I've got a lot of bad habits from when I learned to call because of what was standard. And it's the same with terminology. How you express it, I think you were right when you said the balance. If you're going to say boys and girls, then call it equally. Don't say boys and ladies all the time, or use them interchangeably, or pick one.
Well,
yes, John.
Do you hear me there, Mel?
Yep.
Yep.
So, when I was taking lessons 35 years ago, we were taught to do circle 4, circle left, circle right, turn through Alaman left, and then we had square through 4 to a wave, swing through and left swing through. And what this did in the first 2 weeks is it was taught all the dancers, the rights and the lefts. And from there, it went into the teacher went into his classes and taught, and everybody understood left and right a lot better than trying to teach a little bit here and teaching swing through now, and then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, teach left swing through. So they didn't know which arms they were, they were getting confused. But this way, they knew the left and right, and in the first week or 2 weeks, and they picked it up, and you could, and every week they completely use all the calls that he taught in the first 2 tips. And then as we went along, it worked out pretty good. And I believe that's a good system of doing it. And I do it for a first nighter sometimes. I'll go in and I'll teach a little bit of this, and then it works great.
Yeah, there's a lot of different teaching styles. There's a lot of different lists. Even the Collar Lab list is a recommended teaching order. It's not a fixed order. It's recommended how you do it. Some callers don't introduce extended applications until later. Some do it right at the beginning when they're teaching a call. What works for you and what works for your dancers, it's what works. But as John Jurgens was saying and Betsy was saying earlier, once you use it, or once you introduce it, you've got to use it. You've got to keep it part of the vernacular, because teaching it once and pulling it out once a year at a special evening dance to frustrate the dancers is not what it's about. If you're going to teach them something, they're going to use and they're going to learn and they're going to have fun with all the time.
I'm gonna say this. Any idiot can break down a square.
Oh, absolutely.
And show off how much, quote, the caller knows.
Yep.
But that's not what our goal is as a caller. Our goal is to make the dancers succeed and have fun. And one of the things I learned about left and right, people are kind of embarrassed sometimes about, I forget how many, it's 10% of people don't naturally know their left and right easily. Right. So what I find in most societies is, if I'm doing a beginner dance, what I use is I'll have people shake hands, because I don't care if they're a little kid or a grown up. Now obviously now in the COVID, but they would reach with their right hand. So it eliminated the embarrassment of not knowing which hand to use. I don't know if we'll ever get back to shaking hands now. Maybe if we wear gloves.
Yeah, the first time I teach right and left grand, I teach them to shake hands and then use every other hand.
Yep.
But I've only got 2.
And I learned from a friend of mine. I never thought about it. It was just you start and stop with your partner. But she was working with Handy Capable, and she had them count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's your partner. Stop.
I
went, cool.
I taught a handicapable group, and I used the song Bingo. B-I-N-G. Oh, there's my partner.
Yes.
I also used a glove hand and a bare hand for the stars because they had trouble with left and right, but we put a green glove on everybody's left hand, and then
Yeah, I worked with some grade schools periodically, and they would put like one of those rubber band bracelets. You know, it's not a real rubber band, but a rubber bracelet about half an inch thick on the hand. And
Right.
so it was the band hand and the bare hand.
Yeah, like sort of like.
But what I would do would be I'd say, okay, with the band hand, that's a left hand star. With a bare hand, that's a right hand star. So even then, I was kind of working with the left and right, but gave them the clue first, and then I could help their understanding maybe.
Exactly.
One of my partners back in the night, actually, is my girlfriend back in the 90s. She just didn't know left from right naturally at all, and so eventually I got her a sweatshirt that she loved, and it had somebody made him up and had on the left hand sleeve it said Alaman, and then in big letters left, and on the other hand it said Grand right and left.
That's cute.
And she would look at it.
I figured out early on how to take my brand new dancers and explain this left and right to them. I tell them put both hands out in front of them, palms down. Now the one with thumb on the right is the left, and the only one left is the right. Wait a minute, maybe it's the one with thumb on the right is the left, and the only one left is the right. Then I give up and go back to teaching them how to square dance.
Well, that's the thing though. The humor wasn't directed at anybody, but it broke up the tension and the embarrassment, and that's a good use of it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're talking about earlier on was, and Betsy mentioned when she was teaching grade school kids, I've often done shows at our daughter's schools, and where our grandson goes to school now, he's 11. I had to do a presentation and teach them some dancing last year. And I've always known that it's not so much the boys and the girls or the lefts and the right that they don't like. I found that at that age, the boys don't like touching hands with the girls, and the girls don't like touching hands with the boys. So I came up with a really neat idea to get rid of it. I handed gloves out to everybody.
Yep.
The little throwaway gloves. Oh, and because that added to the humor. They thought it was hilarious, and they all used it, and so they were happy to touch. And we had a lot of fun.
You know, if you give them a green hand for the right hand and the blue hand for the left hand,
that would work as well.
Maybe you could have all four cooties chain.
Oh, no.
My battery's going.
Yeah, if they have long sleeves, this is what they do anyway.
I think Chris mentioned beforehand something about having the good girls promenade. I like to use that because I don't care about the ones who go. I want to find out the ones who don't go because they're the ones I want to talk to later on.
Right, exactly.
Hey, Barry, Vic Cedar has a little ditty he does. It says, good girls walk and the bad girls ride. Come on, bad girl, my car's outside.
Yes.
That's part of his old time patter collection. Yeah.
But we don't.
I took off earlier. I got called away. I'm back now, but I've got to go again. Nice seeing everybody. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yeah.
I know Mel said something earlier, but you might check into Don Beck's session. It's 11 o'clock Eastern time on a Saturday morning. No, check in. I think these things are absolutely wonderful. And added bonus, I get to see old friends like Betsy and Barry. And
Exactly.
But I don't get to
Yep.
see very often anymore. So, bye
Bye, Daryl.
Bye,
See you,
Daryl.
Daryl. See ya.
Yeah.
Daryl.
The
Ne-
thing I
next-
like about this is we get to see people from all over and get to put faces. And one of these days, when I get to visit some of these places, I'll have friends I already know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Helen, I plan to come to Sweden sometime. My wife is actually, her father was Swedish, and so I want to plan a trip over there. So,
Well, you're very welcome.
yeah. And
Yeah.
of course, I've got to go down under. I've got to go down under. Yes. I'm not going to.
I really want to go back to Australia. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic visit. I was only there for a month. I'd like to go back for, what is it? Is it 3 months you can be on a visitor's visa? I'd love to do that sometime. And then certainly lots of you will get visits.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
I'll come to dance to you.
All welcome to come and stay at our house anytime. My name is Mel Wilkerson.
Thanks, Mel.
I want to get back to one thing. I thought of a story, you know, and John isn't here anymore, but it's, why should we know what's standard? And the answer is because that we need to know what the dancers expect. Way back, this is sometime in the 70s, we still had +1 and +2. I was calling for a club in New York, and it was a +1 club. So they had diamonds, and they had flipped a diamond. And when I got them into diamonds, they made little right-hand stars. There were no centers and no points. They were all clumped together and made a little right-hand star. And I thought, oh my gosh, they don't know how to flip the diamond other than what's standard. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's standard. I spent the entire night, I never called flip the diamond. I was petrified. They must have thought I was really creative. I just didn't know which way they would succeed.
Well, you should have called it to find out.
No, I was scared because I was much younger, and I wanted to make a good impression.
Well, let me ask you a question. Were you calling written material or were you sight calling?
I was sight calling.
Well, you could have called it to figure out what they were doing.
Yeah, but then I wouldn't have a square left to resolve with.
Sure you would.
No, not those dancers. Not if they made little right-hand stars. If I called it wrong, I wasn't going to have waves.
So did you ever figure out what they were doing?
No, I looked it up. They were making little diamonds the way they'd been taught, but they hadn't been taught where the centers and ends were.
Well,
So I looked up what was standard.
So who did the flipping for them?
The girls.
So?
And the boys would move up, but I didn't know that then. I had to go. I went home and looked it up.
I would have called it just to see what they did.
Well, you're a braver woman than I am.
Well, but you know.
No, I just called around it. I called diamond circulate, and those in the waves swing through. Diamond circulate. Those who have the boys hinge. Pick up a girl and the couples circulate. We never flipped a diamond for the whole evening.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of these that if I get anything new, I just push all the buttons to see what it does. I'm the same way with dancers. I'll just push the buttons to see what they're doing. I don't mind making mistakes as long as it's a learning thing. Or memories.
There's a C4 caller that I knew who used to, and he had a group in his basement, and but he was still learning to call, and he wasn't good at sight resolving yet, and he would blow it a lot, and usually after he said Alaman left, and then it was obvious that that they got the wrong person, he would over the mic say, "Damn it." And so the group decided that after a few weeks of that, they decided that the next time and henceforth when he called "damn it," that would be, and they didn't tell him this, of course, but that would mean whatever it takes, go change places with your corner. So this led to a tip where he called Alaman left, "Oh, damn it." And then he saw them do something. And so, speaking of pushing buttons, he's then like, damn it, damn it, damn it. Oh, I see what it means now. Okay, great. And then he was able to proceed from there.
And see, I would have said Janet because of the movie, Damn It, Janet, but okay. Well, I'm going to go fix dinner. It's time. What time is it?
Yeah, I must go. So thank you, everyone.
Okay,
We'll catch
Ron.
you on the dance floor, on the Zoom dance floor, and at the next meeting. Thank you.
We'll see ya.
Take care.
Bye, Betsy.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm leaving also. It's 3:10 in the morning and it's time to go. So thanks very much for a very, very good talk. Really interesting. Thank you.
Good. I hope it helps you.
It sure will.
Good night, Helen.
Night, Helen.
I'm going to leave as well. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Betsy.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Take it easy, guys. Enjoyed it. Thanks, Betsy. Thanks, Emil. Catch you later.
Bye-bye.
No worries. Betsy, I want to say thank you very, very much for coming in and also putting in time. We're now 2 hours, well and truly 2 hours into it, more than 2 hours into it. Very active presentation and a very, very, I don't know how to say anything else other than I'm grateful for you coming in and thank you very much for your time.
I had a great time.
And you are always welcome to come back.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Betsy?
Yes.
Where you come out to Australia, you did the caller school in Australia. You called a sequence using turn through with the rights and left turn throughs, and you sort of we ended up, it was all basically done on turn throughs. Can you remember what that was?
No.
Okay.
Sorry. You
Yeah.
do?
This is what you were referring to with you said this is from a contra thing. It was an Alaman left, give a right pull by, give a left hand turn, come back, give a right arm turn, go forward one, give a left arm turn. When you're talking about getting new dancers moving around the floor, just getting them interacting, it was an interactive turn through, right pull by, left turn through, come back one, right pull by, or right turn through, left pull by, right arm turn, come back. And it was just a way of going around the ring with all those arms.
No.
Is that not the sequence you're referring to?
No. We went into the middle and turned through, and I'm not sure whether we did a turn through and then face your partner, turn through, and then you had them doing a left turn through or something.
That could be. Well, there used to be an old time figure. I can't think of what it was titled, but I use it for beginner dances where for them I would call Alaman left with your opposite and Alaman right with your partner. But for other people it would be Alaman left with your opposite, or left turn through with your opposite, face your partner, right turn through, go out to your corner and left turn through. Something like that.
Q, isn't it?
Susie Q, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if you know the old ideas, you can translate them into modern square dance.
That's a Susie Q, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you could have the there used to be also a figure which I used in the module turn through and a courtesy turn. If you start half sashayed and you turn through and courtesy turn, it used to be called the turn and left through. There's no reason to use the term turn and left through, but it's a great action if you have them turn. And you could have the head ladies turn through and come back to your partner and courtesy turn and then flutter wheel to get started, just for different ways to use it.
Oh, I call that action all the time. That's a good one.
Yeah. There was the dunny chain too, wasn't there? I mean, daisy chain.
Daisy chain, yes. Forward two and backward what?
Yeah, something like. We used to call it the dunny chain.
Terrible, Jeff.
Speaking of Susie Q, I need to go back and learn how to do Sally Gooden. That was another old-timey thing that was fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Head man out to the right and turn that lady by the right, but there were different terms for each of the girls.
Yeah.
I have books over there across the way from me that I could look it up. But I'll make you do your own work. But if you look at some of these old time dances, if you get a hold of an old time book, figure out how you can translate some of those ideas to modern.
Yeah.
When I first learned, I totally forgotten what the figure was, but one of the calls the caller used was duck for the oyster, dig for the clam.
Oh.
And there might have also been rip and snort.
Yes, couple. Yeah. There was usually a visiting couple dance, and couple one would bow and swing and lead out to the right of the ring. You circle left halfway. At this point, couple one makes an arch, and couple two dives under, but nobody lets go of hands. And then you back out, and then couple one dives under and backs out, or couple one dives under first. Couple two makes the arch. They have their back to the center of the circle. Then couple two gets a chance to dive, and then couple one dives through and swings your partner and moves on to couple three. And duck through a hole in the old tin can, and then you did a dish rag. A dish rag turn was where nobody let go of hands, and hopefully nobody got hurt, but you would dive through and turn under each other's arms until you unwrapped the whole circle into a circle.
Mm.
There was also something we did that had a basket swing in it, you know, where the girls were actually off the ground.
Swing like thunder.
Yeah. You had to have the right shaped ladies for that.
It was a college club. So
put Susie Q and duck for the oyster and dig for the clam in the chat if you're interested.
What'd you say?
The definition to Susie Q and dig for
duck for the oyster and dig for the clam are now all in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
So where's the ID number come in then, Mel?
Those are just listed. That's off Jay King's book.
Okay.
But Susie Q, Jim York in 1949 come up with that one.
Yeah, they're not on the current list.
No.
Okay.
You have to get old time dancing.
Yeah, or get a copy of Burleson's.
Mm.
One of the older copies of Burleson's.
I have that, but it's in storage.
Back on, there used to be a system. Oh, what was that article we did on old Foster cards? I don't know if you remember those.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. Foster was a square dance caller in the States, and he put out he called it it was the Foster system of square dance calling. It was very, very popular back in the I think the 20s through the 40s, and he put out the cards, and that's where when a dance was the dance itself, and he'd have his square dance cards. One of the cards, his Foster card is card number 26, which is duck for the oyster, and it's swing your partner a little bit hard, Alaman left in your backyard, grand right and left promenade, first lead right and four hands round, duck for the oyster, duck for the oyster, duck for the clam, duck for the hole in the old tin can, change and swing and change right back, and so on and so on. And then he's got the explanation of how to do it, and that's on the old card, and that's what you would buy is his calling system of cards. Sure. It would have all of those on it, and it would have the explanations on how to do it. You'd have the patter or the calling on the left side, and you'd have the explanation of that movement that you're doing on the right hand side on the old Foster cards.
Oh, that's cool.
I think Vixida has him on his website.
Vixida has him on his website? That's cool.
Yeah. At least he used to. I downloaded it.
I'll have to check it. So, some of those are what when I learned to dance, that was what we were doing with some of those. It was
Betsy, I wasn't going to say it in the introduction, but you started calling the year I was born. So I didn't want to really say that out loud, so I'm not going to make a mention to it.
It's a published fact how long I've been calling. I'm not young anymore, although I think that way.
Yeah.
I can remember a lot of those things. I was born in 1947. I first started dancing with my mum and dad. It must have been about 57 or 58. And that was in the early heydays of square dancing, here in Australia. I can remember going along there, and I can remember them doing lots and lots of weird and wonderful stuff with number one couple leading to the right. And I can remember duck for the oyster, dig for the clam. This chase the snake was another strange thing. I didn't I think I stayed dancing for about a year while Mum and Dad danced. Then I didn't come back until the 1966. But a lot of that stuff is still really interesting today. It can be utilised within modern square dance clubs for not just for a gimmick effect, but to give the dancers more interest without having to learn anything brand new that's going to tax their brains.
Yeah.
I've got, as Betsy knows here, and Mel and Jeff, I've got a huge library of stuff, square dance library here. I've got, I must have 50 or 60 books on square dancing in the years. I've got just about every note service that was ever published, even things that go back to the late 1940s. Les Gotches from the 1950s and the 60s, a huge amount of stuff. I go through it on a regular basis to glean information that I can use in BTM. Every single time I look at it, I always find something that says, oh, wow, that was really great. I'm going to have to get that out and use it again. It's a shame that more callers don't look at the past in order to present interesting material in the present stage. There's a lot out there. I'm hoping to do a lot more in coming issues of BTM. So I've got to do a restart on the September issue this afternoon. But unfortunately, I have to go because our oldest daughter, Amory, has just arrived. And if I'm not careful, she'll go and drink all my scotch. The scotch that was left, that's the stuff that was left over after Betsy and Roy were here. So all the best to everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
I just put
catch you, Barry.
I just put Chase the Snake. I don't remember that, but the first thing I ever called was Chase the Rabbit.
All right.
Which is also a visit. I started dancing in '52 when I was 5 going on 6 because I was born when Mel was. And that was what we did then. And I never stopped. So I was someplace. I was calling for the gay club in Philadelphia and I was reading their bylaws and I said, I can't be a member. And they were all going, why? I said, because I've never graduated from a mainstream class. And that was one of the things they decided to grandfather me in.
I still find the Grand Colonel spin very popular amongst dancers here too.
Oh yeah.
They love it because I don't call it. We just put music on the way they go.
Yeah, and even if it's something you walk through, it's a long pattern. They feel like they've accomplished something, and then they can just relax and do it and enjoy the music. So it's a great change of pace.
Yep.
We used to basically, as a workshop, learn to dance. One of the records, I can't quite remember what it was. It might have had a Red Hot or something like that. It was that kind of choreography. The only thing I can remember about it is that it's it was a singing call. We just put on the flip side with the calls on it, and the guy and there was one part where it's something about yeehaw, the devil comes a calling. And then I think there
promenade, that shady lady.
Yeah.
Back, but only one promenade, gonna have a little fun. Ain't no sin to sing and sway and pick up a doodle in the middle of the day.
It was pick up a doodle. Yeah.
I just had to go through it till I got to the title.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a very popular one.
I'm pretty sure it had like Red Hot and Ice Cold or some calls like that in it.
It was one of those. There were a couple of them that just never stopped. Part of the degree of difficulty was that you never came home. You never finished it. You just kept going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And so there was no time to catch your breath. Plus, like Red Hots or Ice Colds or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Because the old promenade, you just you just turned until the men turned back and then you could promenade. Until you turned, arm turned until the lady was facing promenade direction. The men just did a U-turn back and settled right into the promenade.
Well, Red Hot and Ice Cold were the popular moves of 1981 from Color Lab in the, I believe that was the quarterly selections.
Could be, but they were around well before that, so
Oh, yeah,
they just
no.
were reviving them. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a Queenslander, we had a caller called Graham Rigby, and every year he used to put on a Rose Bowl, and that was traditional square dancing from the 40s and 50s. And every square had to keep going as long as they could, and the winner was the last square dancing, because as soon as you make a mistake, you had to drop out.
We were having that discussion in Don Beck's thing this morning about competition square dancing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Somebody got drafted to do a talk on that, right?
Yeah, I believe it was Daryl from Vancouver. He was part of the Northwest Teen
Oh, sure.
competition dancing. That's where he started. So he's going to be talking about that. But competition square dancing then and what it is now is very, very different. Some people take it way too serious. Other people just enjoy it. And other people just get up to dance because they enjoy it. And they don't care if it's competition. It always reminded me of when I was in the Army and they would have competition drill or competition contests, and some units would train and train and train and train, and then with us in the unit I was in, they just Sergeant Major would come by and say, you and you, right, you're the competition team, go, you're going. We didn't even know what the competition was, but we'd go. It could be a Canadian Army Trophy gunnery competition, it could be a marching, could be a shooting competition. He just picked 4. Didn't matter who. You guys go. No, you guys go. You guys go. And that's the way he did it. You all supposed to know this stuff. You all go. It was one of the German Armored Corps units was exactly the same. They just said, right, didn't matter who. They put all the vehicles in there. It was just a lottery. They just picked one. You guys are going to Canada for this competition. They had no idea what it was they were doing, where they were going, or when. They just told, that's it. You're not training for it. You're supposed to know this stuff. Off they go.
Yep.
And a lot of square dancers are like that too. Anyway, as I said, we've dwindled down from about 45 to 11 participants. The floor is still open if anybody wants to talk. Betsy, I thank you again for sticking around and giving us your time. Much appreciated.
I enjoyed it.
Yep.
If anybody else has any questions for Betsy, by all means.
No, but I've enjoyed the session, and thank you, Betsy. Thanks again, Mel.
Thank you, Jeff.
And we'll catch you next week.
I'm hoping next week to have Steve Turner here to give us a talk.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
I've just got to nail him down on it.
Yeah. Bye.
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 I just want to say thanks to Mel. Oh, did he sign off?
No, I'm here.
Mel's here.
Oh, there you are. Oh, you moved. That's it. Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for putting this on. And Betsy, super job as always. Very nice.
Thank you, Chris.
I felt kind of bad there at one point bringing you back to your last slide because I thought we were getting away from it for a bit. But,
that's all right.
And like I said, this is what one of the comments that came out of Dawn's presentation, one of the things that we get with a lot of new callers on these types of presentations is they want them to be more interactive. A short presentation, 30 minutes, and then time to talk about what it was you presented, or interactive while you're presenting. And yours was the most interactive thus far.
Great.
Great presentation. I loved it.
I always feel that questions are there, and people should be asking them, and they shouldn't be afraid to ask them.
Yep.
So I guess people felt that.
They're comfortable with you, and that's what's good.
Good.
So next week you're presenting on.
No, you've got.
No, I'm serious.
You got
though,
Steve.
Anytime you want to come and give a presentation, I'm open. Whatever the topic you want.
Well, I'll think about it. See if I can come up with something else that will be useful.
You're more than welcome. So if nobody has anything else, I'm going to end the meeting. I want to say thanks to Mark, although I think he stepped away from his computer.
Yes.
Mark is doing all the recording for us and posting them up on newbie callers.
And helping me with technology. I want to thank
And
Mel for
I've got-
helping with the technology since I couldn't make mine work here.
I don't know what's going on. I had problems with it last week as well with presenters, but it actually started working. I don't know what it is. And I've got Betsy's PowerPoint presentation. So if you want to get that, you can email me, and that'll also be posted on Facebook after Mark posts the presentation.
Cool. I'll have
Thank
to get
you very
a
much,
Facebook
everybody.
page.
Have a good rest
Bye-bye.
of the week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
I'll see you.
Morning.